And as we have already established, NMIXX's management is quick to please the fans and is unable to stick to one thing for more than one comeback, and I am being generous with this. So, Rollercoaster by NMIXX just dropped, and I was disappointed, in a sense. And then I had a thought. It's been literally a bit more than a year since OO dropped and less than a year since DICE dropped. How did we get from that point to now? Because OO and DICE, sonically and conceptually, are miles away from Rollercoaster. It's true that 1 year by pop standards is quite a long period. But I think there's more to it, and I wanted to explore that. So, if you're up for that, this video is for you. But firstly, a disclaimer: what is stated here is based on my own insights, and in no way am I claiming that this is the only interpretation of the situation. You are very much free to disagree. Also, NMIXX is literally my second favorite group after Twice, so don't even think about calling me a hater. Additionally, when I refer to NMIXX in this video, I refer to them as an entity, meaning everyone behind the group, not just the members, unless otherwise specified, of course. So, most people know of the mess that was NMIXX's debut. The title track OO came on with a splash, with the group's main concept being mix pop, which put plainly, is essentially having their songs being mashups of 2 or more different songs, instead of one singular consistent song. Most people hated this song and the concept behind it and called NMIXX copycats and sponsorship chasers. People said their music was trash and everyone was pitying them because supposedly their talents were being wasted, and so on and so forth. Truth be told, OO was not that bad. The only jarring part was the transition between the first segment and the second segment of the song. You know, where Jinny goes like, which was partly made worse by the silence in the MV being that part. What's more, it wouldn't have received nearly as much backlash if it were released by an already famous group. Literally, New Jeans got away with making a whole song about Coca-Cola instead of just a verse that fits and isn't nearly as out of place as was the case with OO. And similarly, S-Class by Stray Kids carries a lot of similarities with OO, but stays are loving it. And it is undeniable that OO has catchy parts. Furthermore, the B-side Tank was liked by a lot more people, though it still maintained a lot of elements of the first girl crushy part of OO, sonically and lyrically, and for some it was enough for them to start following NMIXX on their artistic journey.
NMIXX, change up, let's go!
Jumping forward to some months later, NMIXX come back with DICE. The song receives a lot more positive attention because it is much tamer in the nature of its switch up. The second verse, the NMIXX, change up, let's go, big wave, goes kind of viral on TikTok, and a lot more people are paying attention to NMIXX and their mix pop. However, this is where the cracks start to form because along with DICE, we get Cool, Your Rainbow. It is a nice song, good lyrical message, and is brought to life by emotive vocal performance by NMIXX. Personally, I think that Cool, Your Rainbow should have gone as another B-side in their debut because it mirrors the second part of OO, just as Tank does the first part. Artistically, it would have been better there, but it is still a good song. It was also the reason why many people begged JYP to abandon mix pop, because it was a more commercial sound that would make NMIXX more popular, if followed. And while that is true, it was a more generic sound as well. However, even at this point, NMIXX are still not performing particularly well, at least commercially, with DICE only peaking at number 49 on the Circle chart, which isn't the best outlook for a Big Three group in their second release. The single album, though, performed quite well, peaking at number 1 on the weekly albums chart, 2 on the monthly chart and 30 on the yearly chart, which is quite good considering the fact that the single album had come out during the fall. It showed that NMIXX and their mixpop had a dedicated fandom. However, something pivotal happens during this time period. Jinny, the de facto center, leaves the group. This is quite important because if you think about it, in both cases of the NMIXX change-up part in Surprised Face and Dice, Jinny and her voice were the ones to summon the song change, and though Jiwoo's attempts at covering that part were quite laudable, it just didn't hit the same. Still, it's not like NMIXX were completely lost in their identity. If there was one thing that no one could doubt was NMIXX's vocals, which surpassed those of the whole 4th gen, with only aespa being able to compete, and barely for that matter. With Jinny's departure, one of the weakest vocalists of the mix, no pun intended, is gone, and this opens up a lot of new doors. It is also important to note that NMIXX's covers have at this point garnered significant attention on them. Most of them are vocally demanding and NMIXX deliver every single time. The most noteworthy ones are The Explosive Kill This Love, the fun and upbeat Move Your Body by Beyoncé, the powerful Survivor by Destiny's Child, the cutesy and lively Very Nice, and the carefree and simple Apktifu. People who watched these covers realized one thing: that NMIXX can pull off those concepts and sound. Finally, we should also note that the Y2K trend that started some years ago has now taken the world, and even more so the K-pop world, by storm. So, with Jinny gone, those covers blowing up, MIXPOP not being that commercially successful, the backlash, and Y2K being the main trend at this point in time, JYP decides to abandon MIXPOP, at least in the sense that it was implemented before. And this leads us to
Love me like this, love me like that, love me like this, and I'll love you right back.
their second comeback. Love Me Like This is an explosive and snarky Destiny's Child Beyoncé's R&B track, clearly fueled by the success of those respective covers, with NMIXX's vocal prowess being sprinkled all throughout the song. And a definite 2000s feel, which wasn't only in the fashion and styling as was the case with most groups, Twice, even ITZY, New Jeans, but in the sound as well. And it paid off. This song was by far NMIXX's best commercial performance domestically, peaking at number 11 on the weekly chart, 14 on the monthly chart, and giving the group their first music show win. Expergo, if that's how it's pronounced, the EP in which Love Me Like This was included, faced even greater success, peaking at number 2 on the weekly chart and 4 on the monthly chart, selling over 550,000 copies in Korea alone. Even internationally, it charted relatively well, even marking their first entry in the Billboard 200 chart in the US. This era also came with a clearly immature Young, Dumb, Stupid, that fits into the cute song concept, in a similar vein with a very nice color. What stands out in this track is its sampling of nursery rhymes. It is nothing innovative in that sense. We've seen songs sampling children's songs with Melanie Martinez and that Twinkle Twinkle Little Bitch song that was trending on TikTok, being the most prominent examples. However, an NMIXX, instead of trying to turn those nursery rhymes into mature songs like the aforementioned artists, they double down on their immaturity. Young, dumb, stupid, but who cares, they energetically sing. They celebrate those parts of their youth unapologetically, putting a new spin on the oversaturated cute concept. In that sense, they maintain the lyrical dichotomy that came with MIXPOP. With Young, Dumb, Stupid carrying the parts of the girl crushy section of Surprised Face and Tank, and Love Me Like This carrying the adventurer, love song part that we saw in the second section of Surprised Face, Dice, and Cool. So in that sense, part of their identity is still retained at this point. And this all would have been jolly and fine if it weren't for the other tracks in this EP. Home, one of the B-sides, is an okay track. It follows Young Dumb, Stupid's road of rebellious youth, albeit worse, with the members proudly declaring, "We don't wanna go home." Truly, it's the vocals that carry this track more than anything. It's bland but fine for a B-side. Sonically, My Home is also similar to another B-side, Just Did It, which admittedly is my favorite of the tracks with no MV. The song's chorus, especially when it's Lily singing it, is the highlight. Other than that, this song marks the first of the 3 B-sides that focus solely on the love song, superhero adventure part of NMIXX that I mentioned before. Similarly, My Gosh, the third B-side, though a more ballady track, is still another love song talking about the excitement of love and connection with someone else. But it's boring, it's bland, and it holds little to no uniqueness to NMIXX. What the previous two songs lacked in catchy melodies, they made up for in the fun production and attitude or vocals, which this song lacks. Finally, we have Password, which I also find boring. And though the lyricism is quite smart, it has no other redeeming qualities. It's bland. The issue with these four tracks is that they progressively lose the artistic identity of NMIXX. Home still has a strong vocals that only NMIXX can really carry, and along with Just Did It, they have this quirky and fun production and attitude. These factors though are completely lost within My Gosh and Password. But what's even more important is that all of those tracks are not unique to NMIXX, and I could picture so many other artists singing them. And artists that are much bigger than them, at least popularity-wise at the moment. First and foremost, New Jeans. Maybe not Home, but all the other tracks could definitely be sung by them. Secondly, IVE, with their B-sides in the I Am era, which admittedly hadn't started yet. But, the fact is that it's much more popular. And even the newly blown up 50/50 with Higher and Tell Me. I'm not saying that NMIXX copied them, because like, in IVE's case that would have been impossible. If anything, this was quite a popular and commercial sound before these groups. And I'm not saying that just because they had some bland B-sides, they are not valued as artists anymore. The issue with this whole thing is that people actually like those B-sides. Sometimes more so than the title track. Freaking Password, which is the blandest of all these tracks and the dullest one, is also one of the most favored. And as we have already established, NMIXX's management is quick to please the fans and is unable to stick to one thing for more than one comeback, and I'm being generous with this. And that leads us to now. As of writing and recording this section, NMIXX have only released Rollercoaster. But from the teasers and highlights, it looks like both tracks are fairly similar. So, Rollercoaster is the result of people liking those four B-sides and that sound being generally commercial, which equals more opportunities for money for the company. The song again fits in the love song side of NMIXX's discography, and it is just as bland as all those other four B-sides. I wouldn't be opposed to listening to it on a hot July or June or even spring afternoon. But that's not what I, and many others, think of when talking about NMIXX. We want the explosiveness, the energetic melodies, the snarky sweet sultry variation in their attitudes, the vocals, whether that be through EDM or R&B, or the mix-pop sound. And Rollercoaster, and from the sounds of it Party O'Clock, don't have that. They sound just like any other track that could be released by most of the trending girl groups right now. Even the MV for Rollercoaster looks like that one random IVE summer film. Though for the MV, I do still have some trust in the music video for Party O'Clock. It is important to address the fact that I'm neither against artistic variation nor against sound evolution. However, the problem with NMIXX is that they haven't yet built solid foundations on their sound so that they can develop and experiment with their artistic identity. They need to stick to one thing, and they have that thing right in front of their noses. The original mix-pop didn't work out commercially. But the R&B sound of Love Me Like This fit them to a T. It can't be replicated successfully by other groups, and it has proven to be a commercial success that could only rise from this point. To conclude, I don't doubt that the sound of this new single album could in fact be successful. Or that they might return to the previous sound of Love Me Like This or mix-pop, in other comebacks in the future. But, if NMIXX want longevity in this industry, artistically and commercially, they need to choose some solid foundations and stick with them for a bit. And I really don't want those new foundations to be this soft, dull sound. Because it's just so unoriginal and therefore not firm as a musical basis. As it doesn't work as a distinguishing factor. So yeah, I don't really have that much power. All I can do is hope that they return to one of those sounds and stick to it for a bit, without sacrificing their artistic identity for the sake of money, as it seems like they are doing now. All I can do is hope that they return to one of those sounds and stick to it for a bit, without sacrificing their artistic identity for the sake of money, as it seems like they are doing now. So yeah, have a lovely day, night, afternoon, evening. I don't even know. Just have a great life in general, and maybe I'll make another video at some point. Maybe I won't. Who knows? Bye.